Great. Well, I'm here with Shameel Joosub, Group CEO of Vodacom this afternoon. Shameel, thank you very much for your time. I wanted to ask you, first of all, during the presentation today, you spoke about plans to relaunch the M-Pesa mobile payment system in South Africa. Can you talk a little bit about why you think M-Pesa has not been as successful in South Africa as Vodacom had hoped, and what you're going to do differently this time around?
Yeah, I think, first and foremost, I think the regulation was a lot more onerous, and I think that's eased up as the years have passed. So that's the first thing. Secondly, I think the tighter integration with the banks and the retailers this time around we've managed to perfect in terms of basically integrating into the point of sale of the retailers, and also using the let's call it being able to move money seamlessly from bank into M-Pesa and from M-Pesa into bank.
Okay. Are you drawing, you've been very successful with M-Pesa up in Tanzania. Are you drawing lessons from that market for the South African market?
Very much so. And I think, the nice part about both Tanzania and Kenya, for that matter, is, in Tanzania now we're moving $1 billion a month. And the ecosystem that we've managed to create by getting employers to pay their staff with M-Pesa, you can pay your utilities, pay for all your goods and services, and also money in, money out. So that's becoming very, very successful. You can pay for things like DSTV, all kinds of things with your M-Pesa. So the number of vendors, airline tickets, all of that is there. So you've got this great ecosystem that's been created, and now it's more about keeping the money within the system as opposed to money in and out of the system.
Okay, good. Well, you're going to be relaunching that in about 2 months from now. I wanted to talk a bit about mobile termination rates as well. You also made some comments, some remarks in your presentation this morning, but I'd like to just get a feel from you about where or how you'd like to see this go when ICASA produces its next set of regulations. We've got this, the regulations, although they're invalid and unlawful, have been introduced with a 20 cent per minute interconnect, and as well as the asymmetry that favours the smaller players. Come September timeframe, what are you hoping to see in terms of those rates?
Well, I think what we're hoping to see is firstly is rates backed by a proper cost study, so more factual based as opposed to a desktop exercise. So that's the first and most important thing for us. I think, and obviously it's informed by a proper cost study, which will then give you a clear reflection of our costs, but also a reflection of the smaller players' costs. And the asymmetry should be based on the level of their cost versus our costs.
Right.
So it's got to be informed by something, and I think that's what we're looking for, is a clear and transparent process.
Is the asymmetry the bigger issue for you rather than the actual rate of the termination?
Yes, very much so, because it tends amounts to us subsidizing our competitors on the one side, but also, I think from a rate perspective, mobile termination rates are going down. They're going down all over the world. We even said drop the rates and do the cost study properly, so then determine what the final one is. So effectively, I think mobile termination rates coming down is the reality.
Sure.
How we do it is important as well. And we've got to balance it. So issues like the glide path help, because it helps us to rejig our businesses, as I like to call it, to be able to cope with the decline.
Okay.
But there is pain. There's pain that comes from it, and something has to give, and we make those adjustments. And that's what we've been doing for the last couple of years.
But given the 20 cent figure that the market's looking at now, the cost of terminating a call on your network. Do you think that 20 cent level we're sitting at now is fair? Strip it, forget about the asymmetry. Is that 20 cent per level fair? Or should we be seeing a further reduction from September onwards?
I think the 20 cents cost is fair as we sit here today. As we add more scale, as we become bigger, and so on and so on, obviously that cost will come down.
Okay, so that in future years it could be below that 20 cent level. Okay. You said in your presentation that you've grown your market share in South Africa. Can you share an exact market share number that you believe you have right now, and also where you've been taking that market share from in your view?
So we think our market share is over 53% revenue market share, and obviously we can do a direct comparison with our numbers in MTNs, which we do. And then every now and then, you get some of the Cell C numbers in the media and so on, and you plug that in as well. And Telkom's numbers are published. It's a very close estimate. Where do we think we're taking market share? MTN.
Okay, yeah, because Cell C is claiming that they're gaining revenue market share as well.
I think what's happened is that, MTN's lost share. You can clearly see it. Basically to us and
Cell C.
Cell C.
Okay, that's interesting. Now, we've seen MTN introduce this new permanent 79-cent prepaid rate. I presume that's a reaction to this loss of market share. What impact do you see that, and as well as Cell C's new pricing, having on the market over the next little while?
Well, I think, what we've done is we've also introduced a 79 cents offer for customers that want it. But the reality is, I think a lot of our offers are much more compelling than the 79 or 66 or pricing that's out there at the moment. Because when you can pay 7 cents a minute for a call, why would you want to pay 66 or 79? So I think that's really the reality. I think our bundle strategy, is working well for us, and I think is a very compelling offer. When you put into when you think about the fact that we sold 245 million power hours last year, or this financial year,
yes,
with in my view not a huge amount of effort. I think we're seeing the success of the bundles working.
Okay. You've got this, obviously said the 79-cent tariff in the market on a promotional basis. I think it expires in July sometime. MTN has made their rate permanent. Do you see any need to make your 79-cent prepaid rate permanent?
If need be, we will. But like I'm saying to you, I see a bigger uptake coming from the new stuff. And already, we just launched it, and already we're seeing, we're already seeing 2.5 million unique customers just on these new bundles that we've launched. So I'm quite encouraged that will be a lot more successful. Make your change count for you, 2 rand for 10 minutes.
Sure. I wanted to ask you specifically about Cell C. You say you're unfairly subsidizing them in the current MTR environment through this asymmetry. Assuming that ICASA comes up with a set of regulations that you favour, where does that leave Cell C? Do you think that we're going to have that operator continuing to be a player in this market in the long term, or do you think there's going to have to be some sort of consolidation in that space?
I think in-market consolidation is a necessity. I think the third and fourth players, if I were the third and fourth player in a particular market, and by the way, we've done it in other markets. Vodafone is doing it in the UK, for instance, where they're basically running the network with O2 and effectively compete. So the infrastructure part they're doing together, and then they're trading on the service layer. Now, the third and fourth player, in my view, should have done that. If you've got 2 pots of cash, put it together, and you can then cover a much wider part of the area. So I think that type of consolidation should have happened by now. And certainly if that's something that I would have encouraged. So that's the one side. But fundamentally, this business is about capital investment. If you don't put the cash in, you're not going to get the return. So when Vodacom is spending close to 7 billion a year, and you're spending 1.5, your chances of success is limited. You have to put the capital investment in to be able to see the success. So I think both the third and fourth operator need investors with deep pockets to play catch up, to be able to basically compete, or they need to work together.
Okay. Do you see MTN or Vodacom playing a role in that consolidation, particularly with reference to Cell C?
Well, I think we play a role already by allowing roaming with Cell C. I think MTN does the same by by having a deal with Telkom, and now they're going one step further. We're always willing to work with them to be able to do it. We're already talking to all operators about cost synergies and so on to try and reduce costs. I think we're all in the same boat. We might as well start looking at more and more cost savings. I mean, we already share sites, but we have 3 sets of fiber coming in. It's got to be a chance for for some consolidation there. So I think as the market matures, these type of let's say the level of cooperation between parties from a cost basis becomes more and more important for your own sustainability as a company. And I think we'll see more of that. So you'll either see more consolidation or you'll see more cost savings.
Okay. just in terms of network infrastructure competition in South Africa, what's the ideal size of the market? Should it be two? It sounds like it should be two or three. What is the ideal size of them?
I think what we're seeing across the world now is you're seeing the markets becoming more and more moving towards consolidation. So when you had 5, 6 players,
Sure.
it's all converging towards 2 or 3 players. I think my personal view is, 3 players is enough, to have that. But fundamentally, you need well-funded operators, and I think even in licensing new spectrum, we always need to take into consideration that you need well-funded entities to be able to really make a difference.
Okay, good. I wanted to move on to your acquisition or your planned acquisition of Neotel. You've spoken about that you won't be transferring spectrum across to Vodacom, that it will be a transfer of ownership, and that you hope to get over whatever regulatory hurdles will be placed in your path in that way. But can you perhaps just talk in a little bit of detail about what potential regulatory hurdles your guys have identified as part of this deal?
Look, I think first and foremost, before we get into the regulatory part, we want to keep Neotel as a standalone, effectively, and integrate our fixed business under it, so to create a more formidable fixed operation, and also to give it focus for a while. And we don't want it to be overpowered by the mobile operation. So we want to make sure that we can really unlock the value that we see in the fixed opportunity, clear focus, and basically execute on that well. To that end, that's why we basically want to keep it as a standalone entity, utilize some of the losses and so on that's in there on the one end, and obviously on the other end, that will drive how we take ownership and apply for ownership change. From a regulatory hurdle perspective, obviously there's ICASA and there's the Competitions Commission. From a Competitions Commission, one can't presuppose anything, but I don't, it's not, there's nothing, we're such a small player in the fixed part that, actually they should encourage us to take it, so that you can create more worthwhile competition. On the other side, on the ICASA side, really, I think the regulators should be encouraging this kind of move. Firstly, you'd have a better funded SNO. And I mean, Neotel's done well, but Neotel with a serious cash injection can do 10 times better. And I think that's the reality. And so, and look, this was an open process. There weren't too many people knocking on the door saying, look, let's come into South Africa, let's take it and let's invest. And I'm saying we should look at it and say, Vodacom want to put a 17 billion rand investment into South Africa next year, including the capital investment and so on. That's a sizable investment, and I think we should encourage it, because we'll then have a well-funded SNO, which is what the intention was when we set up to do this. So there's that part. Also, I think, as I said earlier, I think we, as operators, we're choking. We're choking from the perspective that we need more spectrum. Data growing at 80%. You need access to more spectrum.
Would you ever have done this deal in the first place if you'd been able to get access to that high demand spectrum had the process of government opening up that spectrum happened already? Would you have gone after Neotel?
Yeah, I think so. I think when it came up for sale, it was definitely something that we looked at. We see, because we also see the convergence happening in Europe. So our experience in Europe is basically where we're seeing a lot more convergence happening, especially quad play. And I think that so we want to take that and also use that as an opportunity in the emerging markets, if you like. And I think fixed and mobile is converging more, specifically because of the amount of fixed infrastructure you're having to build to sustain the big data growth, if you like.
Yeah. Now, if I'm a consumer, I think consumers were quite disappointed with the launch of Neotel. I think many people were expecting the second national operator to take on Telkom and provide them with a home broadband connection and that sort of thing. You've talked up fibre to the business and fibre to the home in your presentation this morning. Does that mean that consumers can look forward to fibre broadband in the near future?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, what we'd like to do is start with fibre to the business, and effectively by overlaying the two infrastructures, it gives us it takes us much closer to the businesses and so on. We'd like to start with fiber to the business purely from a focus perspective, and then migrate into fiber to the home. So we will do some pilots and so on fiber to the home, but effectively start with fiber to the business. NeoTel gives us the execution capability.
Right.
So it allows us to execute, and we bring in the capital, and so I think the joint part will work extremely well.
Okay. You're going to keep it as a separate entity, but do you intend to keep the NeoTel name?
We haven't decided as yet.
Okay.
We haven't decided as yet. It's still early days, but obviously you'd see a closer integration into Vodacom either way.
Sure. Now, you've said that even with the acquisition of NeoTel, the licensing of new spectrum still remains a crucial issue. There's a lot of debate going on in the Department of Communications at the moment about the best way of doing that, and one of the proposals that's been put forward is that there be some sort of national company created in which all of the operators have some sort of share, and that this becomes a national wholesale operator on which everyone gains access and then competes at a services level. Do you think that's the right approach to go for the licensing of specifically 4G LTE spectrum?
Honestly, no. And why? Because the LTE networks are built. We're busy with the last two provinces, which is the Western Cape and the Eastern Cape, and then the entire network is LTE ready. What we're doing is 74% of our networks already on high-speed transmission of fiber. What's missing? Spectrum.
Mm.
If we get spectrum, we can do a massive rollout of LTE almost overnight. But we need the spectrum to be able to do that. And so where we stand is 2.6 will help, but it doesn't solve your issues, because it's not going to give you the in-building coverage and so on that you need. It will give you some capacity, and I think that's an important part. The 800 spectrum has to be 800, 700 spectrum is the crucial spectrum needed for LTE, because it will give you your indoor penetration that you need.
Yeah.
And for that to happen, so I mean, if they want to create a broad network, fine, but they have to give the existing players spectrum, because you've got the investment, you're putting in the investment and so on. The other thing is, who's going to fund this national broadband network, and how's it going to be funded? So I think it's a noble idea, but how's it going to work? And remember, to build a 4G network standalone doesn't really make sense. Because 4G is to hand down to 3G, is to hand down to 2G. That integration of it on the same network is extremely important. Otherwise, you're gonna end up having issues.
Great. Last question. You're obviously, you mentioned you're keen on still keen on international expansion. You're obviously limited to the sub-Saharan Africa territory, but are there any specific opportunities that you're looking at the moment? What does the Southern African market look like from a sort of Vodacom perspective in terms of acquisition opportunities, new licensing opportunities? What's out there? Is there still an opportunity to grow in a big way in one of the markets in the region?
Well, there's always opportunities. Some are long-term bets. A country like Ethiopia.
Sure.
Yes, we'd love to be there, but so would every man and his dog. So we're all standing in line. We have an office there. MTN has an office there. We're all doing our legwork and so on and so on. It's a long-term play. At some point, it will open up. 90 million people, one network, underpenetrated. Obviously, that would be a nice one to have. So there's those kind of greenfield stuff where long-term investing, building a presence in the market, and so on, I think is there. The other ones are, what we're seeing is we're seeing a little bit of consolidation coming in. We're also seeing some of the operators being stretched. So we're seeing, either in their home countries or whatever, so they're being stretched for capex, which also puts us in a nice position. And that's why I say it's important that we can use the capex to give us a bigger growth. So I'd say we're using the capex quite cleverly. I'm quite pleased with the acquisitions we've made, because I think NeoTel would be better than adding another country. As an example, I think the national acquisition is a good investment. I think increasing our share in Tanzania, where we've got a solid asset, it just makes complete sense. So I'm looking more from a business perspective as opposed to planting flags.
Sure.
And saying so that's important. The other thing that we look at is if the country is too small, it becomes, you know, it's not worthwhile in the longer term to be able to do it. So there is assets coming up. We're perfectly poised. Look, we're involved in a lot of M&A. Some come to fruition, some don't. To be honest, sometimes frustrating. I thought we found a nice one a while back, and then the guy decided, no, you'll hold on for a while, you know, come back next year when it's bigger, so you can charge us more, you know. So those type of things do happen. And
sure.
I think, you know, it's just the nature of M&A.
Great. Excellent. Shameel, thank you so much for your time this afternoon.
Thanks, Dan.